Hi friends, hello. Welcome to Craft Your Joy Live. I'm Lisa Hetrick. We made it. I realized that I set today's live for 11 instead of 11:30. Normally we go live at 11:30, but today we're going live a half an hour early because that's the time that I set for it. So, who knows, right friends? Okay, today I have a really fun but easy going tutorial to share with you today. I'm going to be using my new Gina K stamp set, Second Chances. Again, we're only going to be using two or three of the stamps from the stamp set. We're going to talk about two things today. Watercolor, of course. Watercolor markers, just kind of a continuation of the last tutorial that I did with watercolor markers. I find that if we focus on a technique, I'd like to do it more than once, and that was kind of my promise to everyone this year, was to kind of do things a little bit more than once so that we can build our muscle memory while we're learning our techniques. So we're going to be working with watercolor markers today, and I'm also going to talk about pattern design with stamps. Because it's come up. A couple people have asked about doing some pattern design and creating their own pattern backgrounds with stamps. We're going to do that today. So, hello friends. I've seen people popping in. Hello Sharon. And I know we probably have a little bit of a smaller crew today watching live, but no big deal. You can always watch on the replay. Now, if you're watching live and you have questions along the way, just pop question or Q in the chat. The chat's over here, and I will answer it live. But otherwise, we're going to get started. Let's head to the overhead cam, and we're going to get started on today's tutorial. Okay. Now, here, let's bring in the inspiration for today's tutorial. So here is the card inspiration for the tutorial today. We're going to put a little bit of a watercolor spin on it. So this is a card that I created with the Second Chances stamp set, and I did a pattern design. So you can see that the solid stamp and the line art version of the stamp. So here's the solid. Let's just keep that there. Here are the two stamps. So this is a flower that's kind of opening up, right? So we've got this stamp and this stamp. So you can do two-step stamping with this. I was looking for a card. I knew I had a two-step stamped card. Maybe I didn't bring it in to share it. But hello, Marie, who just popped in. These two stamps, so you have the solid and the line art version. You can do two-step stamping. But I'm going to show you a technique today for pattern stamping. So we're going to use the solid and the line art to create this pattern. And I just found that card. Here's the card that uses those two stamps as a two-step stamping. So we're working light to dark. We're going to do the same kind of thing today, except we're not doing a linear two-step stamping. We're using the solid for our background to create our beginning pattern, and then we're going to use the line art to create the pattern over top of it. So you get this feel of pattern paper underneath here without the height, right? So super fun. And we're going to add a little bit of a twist to it today. Okay. The colors, now the card base, everything that I've listed most of the supplies down below in the description, except for the card base and the inks, which I'll go back and add because I made some changes last minute. I'm going to be using blue denim Gina K cardstock, and I've got that cut to an A2 card. And I have a panel already pre-cut. We're going to build our pattern on this panel of watercolor paper, and I use Strathmore Ready Cut watercolor, pretty common watercolor paper. It's 100% cotton. I use it for all of my paper crafting projects, and I talk about it a lot. So I've got these two pieces already cut, and then I've got a piece of watercolor paper for our sentiment strip. But first, I'm going to talk about, this card's going to come together so quickly, so fast. We probably won't take the entire hour, or we might take the entire hour for today, but it's going to come together really, really nicely. I'm kind of looking at my, making sure we have enough light, and it looks like we do. So it's very overcast here in Maryland today. It's kind of rainy, so it's kind of messed with my lighting this morning. Okay, now the colors that I'm going to be using, I pulled out 3: dark lilac, medium lilac, and light lilac from the Gina K line. I'm probably going to be using these 2 and not the medium, because I really want a contrast between my lights and darks when I'm working on my pattern design. Hello, Diane. Welcome, welcome. So I swatched these out so that you could see them: the dark lilac, the medium lilac, and the light lilac. And I just noticed that I've got lilac sweater on today. That was not intentional, but it's kind of cool. So you can see I'm going to probably focus our attention on this dark lilac and light lilac. And then I've brought in watercolor markers in Danthrian blue and purple violet. So these have the same values in color as the dark lilac and the light lilac. So we're kind of in between. We're in the same family. And we're going to experiment, again, like we did last week, with using watercolor markers and our inks to create some watercolor effects. Good morning, Cheryl. So here is kind of the technique I'm going for: creating a pattern, lights to darks, and doing a little bit of washy watercolor. So we're going to see if it works out. So, but we're actually doing 3 techniques today, but keeping it pretty simple. So let me start. Let's pull out our card. Let me move this over here. Let's pull out our card layer. Now I cut this with this die. This die is, I guess we could call this an oval. This was from my stamp set Friendship Blooms, and it was part of the bundle. So I really like this shape. So I cut that out in the watercolor paper. So that's what I'm going to do. I just cut that out because I really like the kind of contrast between the blue denim and our violet tones. Our violet colors, our lilac colors, have a lot of blue undertone in them. So they're going to work really, really well with that blue denim cardstock. Now, let's dive in and talk about pattern design. I've got the solid version of the stamp. So again, we're working with these 2 stamps from the set. I've got the solid version and the line art version, and we're going to build up our pattern from light to dark on this piece of this piece of watercolor paper, and then we're going to do some washy watercolor. So this card is going to come together really quick, but it's going to look like it has a lot going on for it without a lot of complexity. It's going to look like it's a complex card, but it really isn't that difficult. Okay, now, the key to building patterned paper is to work light to dark, right? So you could do this in 3 layers of color. We're only going to do 2 today. And you're varying your shape. You're varying the way you stamp the image down on the cardstock. So let's go ahead and ink this up in the light lilac. And you could use your Misty for this if you wanted to, but you're going to end up moving that stamp around. So I highly suggest just going rogue. Free range stamping. Okay, so I've inked that up quite a bit. I'm going to start up here, and I'm just going to start to stamp it down. And because we're working with watercolor paper, I'm just going to hold it for an extra second or 2. You can see when you do it on the Gina K heavyweight cardstock, you really don't have to hold it that much. But because we're using that 100% cotton paper, that paper is thirsty paper. So it really wants to suck in the ink and water that we're going to add to it. Diane said this will be my Easter cards. Oh, what a great idea. What a great idea. Okay, I'm just going to keep going. And as we build this pattern, I'm just adding ink in between. So I'm just going to go ahead, and you notice I did a little bit of a quarter turn there and just kind of turned my stamp, and I'm going to work my way down, and I'm going to do a little something. We're just kind of filling our holes here. So you see this little hole right there? Just kind of fill in that space. So I'm starting to fill all of my space here, but I'm turning my stamp like a quarter turn or turn here and there. So I've already gone this way and I've already gone this way. So I'm going to kind of flip my stamp and just find where that edge kind of fits in that little nook there. And just hold that down and stamp. And all I'm doing is just kind of stamping and turning, stamping and turning. And I'm not so worried about areas. Okay, we got a little bit of light there. Let's knock that back a little bit. Got a little bright there. Okay, I'm not so worried about some of the negative spaces that I have, because we are going to be going back over this pattern with our line art version of the stamp. It's going to help fill in that negative space really well. And I have a little bit of overlap there. I really didn't want that overlap, but that's okay. Okay. Let's go ahead and kind of put one right here. And I'm just going to keep working my way down. I've got a little space here. Let's kind of eyeball this. I'm going to kind of come in and do that right there. Just have a little bit of that going off the edge. I kind of like it. Kind of digging it. All right, I'm just going to keep going. I'm going to flip this around and go this way. And then just kind of do another one right here. Now notice that the ink is not like a complete solid here. So we could go back in and I could add a little bit of water to this and kind of blend that out a little bit, but I'm going to let it ride, because we're going to be focusing most of our attention on our washi watercolor with the line art version of the stamp that we're going to layer over top. So again, just a little bit of a recap. Building your patterns. We're working with our piece of cardstock here. We've got watercolor cardstock, and I'm just going round, down, and kind of quarter turning my stamp just to kind of create a little bit of a flow. And I worked in my lightest color, which was light lilac. Now we're going to come in with our dark lilac, and we're going to kind of follow our lines a little bit and just stamp over top. So that's what we're going to do. Okay. I'm going to start up here because I've got that negative space there, and I'm going to turn and just kind of layer that over top so that you can see I'm just quarter turning my stamp all the way down and around. And I'm kind of nesting in between where stamps are meeting each other. So I've got a spot here, I've got a spot here, here, kind of over here. And all it's doing with the quarter turns, I'm also giving myself a little bit of variety in the way it's flowing. The way the stamps are, the line art images is flowing, it kind of looks like petals floating down, which is kind of fun. So again, super simple way to create patterns, patterned paper, working light to dark, doing quarter turns, and then kind of being mindful of your negative and positive spaces. I am loving this. I love this. I love these three colors together. I love the light lilac, the dark lilac. I just love it. I'm going to go right here and kind of do a little stamp there. Now, there's a little spot right there that's kind of a little off, but I'm going to let it ride because I'm digging it. We're just going to let it be. I'm going to turn this way. And then I really like my flow here. And I kind of feel like I want to put something there. So let's just go ahead. And you're really using your eye as your judge here. Just going to add a little something right there and see how I feel about it. It's all right. Okay. Loving this. Ah, thank you, Therese. I love it too. I love it, love it, love it. Okay, now, if you were doing this on just some heavyweight cardstock, you would be finished creating your pattern, and then you could just put your card together and add some embellishments. But we are going to take it another step further. Good morning, Rhonda. No worries. No worries. Remember, you can always watch on the replay. Okay, I've got some brushes here. I have a number 6 and a number 2. These are the Princeton Heritage brushes. And what I'm going to do, I've got some water here. I want to get this washy effect, but I also want to control my water. Okay. So we're going to have a washy look to this whole panel, but I am going to control the water by really just kind of letting the brush be a little bit wet, but not sopping wet. And then because the center of the flower here, you can see I'm just going to be dipping in and dabbing off a little bit. The center of the flower is such a solid. I'm just dancing my brush around the center of that flower. Cleaning off my brush, and where these hard edges are, we're just going to like feather them out. And I'm just lightly running my wet brush. It's wet and dry. It's just not super wet over those edges. And then I'm going to let that be, because look at it. It's got a little bit of washiness to it. And it's also picking up the light lilac because I'm activating the colors with just a little bit of water. I'm picking up that light lilac that's underneath, and it's mixing in with the dark lilac. With the, the dark lilac. All right, I'm going to go over here. I'm just doing a little droplet. Clean off my brush. And then just kind of pulling this out a little bit. That's a little bit dark. Clean off my brush. Get it nice. It's wet, but not too wet. And then just feather that out. So I am really controlling the water. So watercolor, part of watercolor and part of learning how to use watercolor is learning how to control your water. And I've talked about this before. Water control is kind of everything. If I want super washy, I'd be throwing down a lot of water here. But I'm really just trying to control what I'm doing so that I get that softness, and I'm only moving the color very slightly. I'm only moving the inks, the Gina K inks, very slightly. Marie just shared I'm going to have to make this card again. Yay! Make it over and over again with different color combinations. Get out your master layouts and, cut yourself different kinds of layers and create your patterns. The other thing you can do, see how I'm feathering out these edges very lightly. The other thing you can do is just get a whole sheet of paper, this watercolor paper, and then just create your entire pattern on the entire sheet of paper. And then go ahead and do your watercolor work, and then decide later when you're ready to make your card what die you're going to use to cut it out, or if you're going to hand cut it, or if you're going to use that whole entire sheet and use a different kind of die and cut it out. How fun would that be? That would be a ton of fun. Okay. I'm just going to add a little bit of water to that middle and then just feather it out. Ooh, it was intense. And while I'm feathering it out, I'm picking up the color that's underneath it, that's in that light lilac. I'm also picking up some of the color detail, some of the detail in the stamp. And I'm trying to be very light washy with my water. So I am really controlling my water and what I want it to do. All right, let's just do a little bit right here. And then just pull this out a little bit. Yes, cool tips, Marie just shared. Cool tips on using the whole sheet. So, you know, that's just one way to like practice your pattern making skills with your stamps. You could also, you know, you can do more than 2 stamps. You could add, if you had, say you had a polka dot, say you had a different pattern you wanted to lay in there, you could do 3 layers. I was just pulling in 2 today just to kind of give you a little primer on how to go about it. And then like this one right here, I'm just going to lightly touch my edge. Just kind of use some of that color up underneath. Oh, this is stunning. I love it. I love it. Okay, now I want to dry this. I'm going to go ahead and dry it. And then we're going to go in with just a little bit of marker color just to bring back the level of intensity of color to the centers of the flower. Okay, let's go ahead and just dry it. I really want to make sure it's completely dry before I add my watercolor marker. It's dry. It's so dry. Marie said you can get a twofer, but each will be slightly different. Yes, exactly. All right, so I'm loving this pattern. I'm loving the way it looks. It's going to look beautiful on that blue denim cardstock. All right. Now, I want to go in with this purple violet. Now, last week I shared these markers. These are the Albrecht Durer watercolor markers. Here's what they look like, right? So these are the Albrecht Durer watercolor markers. I'm adjusting the light again. Sorry about that. Adjusting the light because it looked like it got a little dark there for a minute. And I really, really love them. Now, you could use watercolor pencils for this if you wanted to. You could use other watercolor markers that might be in your stash, like Zigs, Karen brush markers, Tombows. Tombows would be great. Any kind of water-based marker. These markers are just my super fave, and I just love, love, love them. Let's go ahead. Just saw some color things. I'm always fighting with my lights here. The sun just came out. You make your lights, so it was so overcast, so you adjust all the lighting in the space for the overcast, and then the sun comes out. So you get what you get. It's beautiful. Okay, I'm going to go in with the purple violet. Now, I'm going to show you the level of intensity of this purple violet. It is intense, but as I shared last week, the thing that I really like about these markers is that when you apply the water to the marker, you get a really nice distribution of the pigment, and it doesn't leave like super scratchy marks on your paper from applying it. And you can go from a dark to a light very much like you would with a watercolor paint that's in a tube or a pan. So you can get really nice values of your colors from from dark to light. So, and as I shared last week too, the reason why I like watercolor markers, if you're just getting started with experimenting with watercolor and getting comfortable with it, watercolor markers and watercolor pencils are a great way in. If you're not ready to move to pan watercolors or tube watercolors, because we're very much used to writing, right? So we're very much used to using a marker, a pen, or a pencil. So it can help you get confident with your watercolor because you have more control because you're in the way you're applying it. So I'm getting ready to sneeze. Sorry about that. Excuse me. Okay, So that's why I've been sharing it quite a bit this month, because I feel people have shared with me that they have concerns about trying out watercolor. So I'm trying to bring in a little bit of knowledge about different ways to enter into watercolor and feel comfortable. One of my fast and easy ways to enter into watercolor and feel really comfortable is to use your Gina K inks and do what we just did right there to get that washy look. I'm going to go ahead and do some of the Intri-Cut blue right here so that you can see what that looks like as well. That's really intense. I love that color. Look at that. And I love, we're going to use this color because it's going to, might do a little bit of a mix. I think I'm going to do a mix of these two colors. Let's do a little bit of color mixing. That's the other thing about watercolor markers. You can mix your colors just like you would with a pan set or a tube set. So I've used those two colors, got a little bit of water here. I want to mix them together and see what I get. Oh, I'm kind of loving that. I need a little more purple. That Intri-Cut blue is really intense. So I want to add a little bit more of the purple. Let's add a little bit more of the purple violet. And I am really controlling my water here. Don't have a lot of water on my brush, because the more water I add to this, the more it's going to become more like a, oh, I like that. I like that color. More like a skim milk version with the water to color ratio. I'm loving that. So I'm really getting this color a lot closer to the value in here that I want to use. Diane just shared, you are a good teacher and I appreciate how you explain. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I practice this every week, trying to like break things down into smaller pieces so that we can all learn from each other and feel comfortable learning in that way. And it's also kind of how my brain works, and I call it nerding out, and you've all heard me say that before. We're just kind of nerding out together. Okay, my brush is wet, but not super wet, and I'm going to pick up some of this color, and I'm just going to drop some in the center and bring my centers back. So what I'm doing is just bringing the level of intensity of my centers back. Now, if you don't have watercolor markers, you can easily do this with your inks, but you're going to have to get a lot of that ink down there to get that, to bring that level of intensity back. And that's fine. You could totally do that. Just picking this up and getting my centers back, bringing that back, because you can already see the difference between this and this. So I love a washy watercolor card. But because we lost our center of that flower, I've kind of lost some of the contrast and detail of the image. By adding some of this color back in, I'm easily bringing my attention back to the center of those flowers and just creating, again, another level of contrast. So we can see in this panel, in this patterned panel, what's in the back, which is our lighter solid image with the light lilac, what's in the middle ground, right, which is our stamp image that we have done a little bit of watercoloring, and then you've got that grounding center point of each flower that creates another level for your eye to look at. And then all we've done, we've created all of that dimension in one layer. I love it. I love it. Okay, now I think I'm going to experiment just a little bit more by adding a little bit of this blue, this Intri-Cut blue. So really the watercolor markers are, and using them, you could do all of this with your inks, friends. You could do all of this. But by experimenting and adding another medium into your paper crafting project, like a watercolor marker or a watercolor pencil, you're just adding another layer of texture and dimension and a lot of contrast. So I feel like what I'm going to do is just kind of get a little bit of water on here. I'm just putting a little bit of, just a tiny bit of water. And I'm going to drop a little bit of this blue in here. Now it looks like I have just dropped blue, but now I'm just going to feather it out just a little bit. Just a little bit. And I'm dancing my brush. See how I'm just drop, 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 dancing it around. And I've added that blue in over top of that purple, the purple violet, or actually the dark lilac. And it's just giving it another level of color and dimension. Let's just do. Adding a few little drops. Now, you don't have to do this. Again, you don't have to do any of this. But I'm just sharing it with you to, jack up the luminosity of your project, right? Because we've added some layers. Look at that blue. Oh, I love it. I absolutely love that blue. Adding some more luminosity to the colors and adding a little bit more of a value between our blues and our purples. A little more color. See how I'm just brush dancing? Just dancing my brush around. Love it. Kathy just asked, would Inktense pencils work? Oh, yes, they would. Inktense pencils would be amazing. And I've shared Inktense pencils many times on this channel. I love them. We can always bring them back into the fold. Maybe we'll focus on Inktense pencils in March because I do love them so much. Marie just said, going back in with the color in the centers really makes a difference. It totally does make a difference. It brings back, it totally brings just a little, it brings that back, that level of telling your eye where to go. I'm dancing my brush around, and it creates that level of contrast that we're looking for. Now look at the way the blues, look at that blue, the way the blues and the purples are mixing together. I hope that's coming through. I can see it. I can see that I could add even a little bit more purple in here. So let's go back. You can see right in these centers that I could even go in and add a little bit more. Diane just shared, Inktense, please. Oh, friends, I love Inktense so much. And I have shared Inktense tutorials on this channel before. But I think this new format, and correct me if I'm wrong, friends, many of you have watched me many times. Cheryl is here. She's watched me many, many times. Many of you have watched my tutorials. I feel like this new format in which I'm taking a little bit of a deeper dive. Look at how I added that level of intensity. Just by adding another layer, we've got even more depth going there. And I think we're good. We're going to stop here. We're going to stop here. So this new format of how I'm walking through these tutorials with less focus on the anatomy of the card and more focus on the technique. Maybe in the past, I know I've probably done that with Inktense, but we could even go deeper with Inktense, especially how you can use your Inktense pencils and Inktense products with your inks and in your paper crafting projects. So I love that, Diane. Thanks for sharing that. That might be our March focus. I think it's going to be. I think I just decided. It's going to be our March focus. We're going to bring Inktense pencils in. My stamp set next that's coming out on the 11th, friends. Very different. Something I've never done before. And I cannot wait till Gina starts sharing some sneak peeks, which she'll be doing that next week. And our Inktense will be perfect with that new stamp set. I'm so excited for that stamp set. I know I say that every month. Every month I say that. But again, I'm just taking it up another level next month with the stamp set that I have coming out. I've said too much. Thank you, Kathleen. Kathleen said yes, intense. Okay, I'm going to dry this, and then we're going to get to building our card. And then we're going to have some time. We're going to have a little bit of time. I knew I was going to finish early today. Oh, I love this. So if anybody has questions, we can do like a little Q&A if you want to, because we have a little bit of time. And if not, we'll just end early. I like to try to allot an hour. Diane said big tease. I'm just kind of like really excited about it. Really excited. Something different from me. Something very different. Okay. Now, I've got my blue denim cardstock. And I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to open this up. I like to open up my card when I'm adding my layer. Now, let's talk about our colors here. By adding, I got really excited there. I'm going to nerd out a little bit. By adding that little bit of indanthrine blue to our centers, it really does have a nice complementary effect to our blue denim cardstock. And I'm really, really loving the way this looks. I want to take a look at it on that screen. I love this. Loving the way this looks. Let's knock back our light a little bit so we make sure it's coming through really well. Okay, I'm going to add a little bit of glue, and we're going to just add that layer to our blue denim. And then we're going to do our sentiment and add a few little bubbles. And then our card is going to be done. So at the beginning of the lesson today, I shared that this card was going to come together really quickly, but it was going to feel, or it was going to have the look of complexity to it, but it was going to come together really quickly. I like to use liquid glue because you can see me, I'm still just kind of moving it around a little bit. Loving that. I always open my cards because I try to get things centered. I eyeball things. I'm a little bit off, but that's okay. I'm not too worried about it. I've got this piece. It's going to look less off when I put our sentiment over the center here. So I had this really long piece of watercolor paper. And I might just add a little bit, I don't know, let's see. I was going to add a little bit of color to it in like a washy way. But let's just test that theory over here on this end before we put the sentiment on. Just to add, so it's not so like I've got all this beautiful color and then it's just kind of not, you know, not as striking. If I added a little bit, we're just doing a little, like a test here. If I added a little bit of color and I dried it, let's try it. So basically I just stained my piece of watercolor paper. I think I'm going to love that better. Pulling a little bit more of that color in so that it's not so, first of all, it's not covering up so much of my pattern, and then it's not so color and then white, right? I'm going to just go ahead in, make it a bigger, we're doing this on the fly. So my brain is telling me we need to do this a different way. So I'm just going to go ahead in with some water on this brush. I'm going to add a little bit more water to my indanthrine blue and just drop that in. Just see how, and let it do its thing. I could have done it with a Gina K ink, but I really want it to be like that bluish purple. So you can see I'm just dancing my brush over it and just staining the paper. Staining it. Look at this. Look at all that beautiful color in that napkin. That paper towel. All right. I digress. Let me just dry this. Oh, it's so pliable. First, let's go ahead and wipe this so that we have a dry spot. And then let's go ahead and get this really nice and dry because I want to add my sentiment. Yes, nice and dry. Okay. All right. There we go. Oh, I love that so much better. It's very subtle. Oh, I love it. I need to grab a pair of scissors. Whoopsie. Let me grab a pair of scissors. I didn't bring a pair of scissors over. So that was a mistake. But okay. All right, let's grab a sentiment from the set. I think I'm going to use Hello Friend because it's a pretty universal. Or that Let's Talk Soon. Love that too. Missing You is a good one. You could use any sentiment from your stash. I'm going to use Hello Friend. And I also realized I didn't bring over Obsidian to do my sentiment. So I'm going to do the sentiment in Dark Lilac. I wonder how I missed that. But first I'm going to lay this down and just kind of go edge to edge with it and trim. So I know, just kind of eyeballing where I want to put my sentiment. I could just lay my sentiment. Friends, how many of us have gotten all the way to the end of our card, right? Our card project. And then we go to put our sentiment on it and we booger it up. Me. I'm raising my hand. Cheryl just had, oh, let's pop that up, Cheryl. That is a great, one thing I've noticed in working with H2O markers is that the color doesn't fade back as much as paints do. Correct. And here's why. So when you're using, these markers are pigment base. So they really do replicate the experience of using tube watercolors or pan watercolors. Our H2O markers or things like Tombow markers or Zigs or Karen brush markers, which those are the ones I think you're talking about, Cheryl. They have dye in them. Okay. So they're not pigment based, they're dye based. So they are going to be really intense. They don't fade back like a watercolor would. Pigment will fade back and you can continue to add layers to build up your color. Dye won't fade back. Dye will be straight up bright, beautiful, and bold, and sometimes kind of fluorescent in nature. And they're perfect to use for our paper crafting projects. You might have, they're sometimes a little harder to move, but you can see how Gina K inks are dye based and they're water based, so you can move them. But you can see that they don't fade back as much. So when I'm painting with them, that color stays exactly the way it is when it's dry. It doesn't fade back as much as a watercolor paint or pigment would. I hope that gives you a little bit of a difference. Now, both are amazing. Both are deliciously delightful and can bring you joy. And I like both for different things. I wouldn't use a dye-based ink in a project like a painting that I was going to frame because it will fade. That's basically the big difference. Pigments and watercolor pigments that are light fast don't fade. Dyes fade when the sun hits them. That's really the difference. Okay, I'm going to use Dark Lilac for our Hello Friend because I didn't bring Obsidian in or Jet Black or something. So I may regret this decision, but that's okay. We're live. We're going for it. All right, I'm just going to lay this down. I'm just going to eyeball and stamp that down. And I'm kind of giving it a little bit of extra pressure, and I'm rocking it just a little bit because it is a very thirsty piece of watercolor paper. So that hello friend is very, very subtle. And I like it, but my brain really wants it to be in black because I like to do my sentiments in black because of creating that extra pop of contrast. But you know what? We're going to wing it. We're winging it today. And I didn't bring it into the frame. So we use what you got. And I still like it. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and pop this on. And I'm just kind of putting it right in the center. Kind of eyeballing it into the center. I like it. I like it there. I kind of don't like that I covered up that center of that flower, but I'm going to live with it. My brain is going to live with it. We're going to be okay. One of the things I could do is I could cut one of these pieces out and pop a piece up. Let's try it. See this piece right here? My brain. Let's pop it. I could die cut that out. There is a coordinating die, but I'm going to do this really, really quickly. And this is me designing on the fly, friends. And I'm going to cut this right, fussy cut this right to the edge. I'm designing on the fly because I have an idea. I may not like it. We'll see. And I'm just kind of cutting this away. Okay. Boop, 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 boop. Trimming away that a little tiny bit. Kind of had the idea to pop that right there. I don't really like that idea now that I think about it. But let's see if I pop this right here. And it just kind of overlaps the sentiment just a little bit. I don't know if I like that either. What if we pop it right here and it overlaps the sentiment a little bit there? I don't know. I feel like I would need to do like another one and pop it up. But that's an idea. That's an idea. I kind of liked the idea of doing it so it broke the shape a little bit. So you pop this up and it kind of broke the shape of the oval. Like that. But I think I would need to do more than one. So I'm not going to do it. That is an idea for another time. Okay. Now, let's go ahead and close our card. I've got some disco ball sequins here. I think they're called disco ball. Let's just pop a few on here. And we're just going to do a few little, let's pop one right here. Do little pop, just a few. Kind of going up. I'm strictly eyeballing this. I'm going to grab my picker and kind of grab my medium and small. These are all kind of big. Let's grab some of our other ones. While I'm putting the sequins on, and we have like a few minutes, I ended up running up to the hour anyway, thinking I'd have more time. But I really do love this opportunity to interact and kind of answer your questions. Hi, Donna. Just saw that you popped in. But you probably popped in a little while ago. If you have any questions, put them in the chat. Also, if you are interested in Inktense, so we've got this little thing going. It kind of makes me want to put one like right here. So let's see. It's kind of cascading down. Let's pop a little sequin right there. There we go. Pop a little sequin right there. I'm liking it. I'm digging it. Okay. I'm loving this card. I'm loving the way this came out. Let's bring in our original inspiration. Here was the original inspiration. And I love this too. If you want to replicate this look, the two colors here were a lovely lilac and eggplant in the Gina K line. And the Hello Friend was done in black. So you don't have to do this technique to create this pattern paper card. You could just do it in with your inks and your Gina K heavyweight card, lightweight cardstock weight, and create that pattern. Cheryl said, getting some ads during the live. Fortunately, they're short ones I can hit. Thanks for letting me know. I've been trying to figure out what my how to fix that. So I'm still working on that so that the ads don't happen while we're live. I don't care if they happen when it's on the replay because I don't have a lot of control over that either, but I'm trying to figure out how to control it so that it doesn't happen on the live. So I am loving this card. Loving the way this looks. Let's bring this up. Like if I bring it up, I can hardly tell if it's like, here's my midfield. If I bring it up too high, see how blurry it gets. So I kind of have to keep things in that little midfield area. But I'm loving the way this looks. Loving it. Loving it, loving it, loving it. Okay. All right, friends. One other thing I wanted to share. Many of you here. Oh, Lynn, thank you so much. Love your teaching method. I'm learning so much. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I have really been really happy with the way these tutorials are coming out. There are so many. It's never lost on me for you to take the time to watch a live with me or watch a replay. And I can't thank you all enough for taking the time to do it. It means a lot to me. So it's important to me to make sure that the Craft Your Joy Live is valuable to you and that you walk away with good, solid nuggets of information versus me teaching you how to fold a card, right? I really want to focus on how you can use your stamps and your inks and teach you some watercolor techniques. So it's working out. Okay, friends, many of you are in my Craft Your Joy, the Craft Your Joy Lab community, free community. If you're interested, I'm so excited. This week was so exciting in the Craft Your Joy Lab. Every month I go into one of the neighborhoods called the Technique Discovery Lab, and I do a technique tutorial that's ad-free, friends, ad-free, and it's chock full. It's like a full-on 1-hour mini class with me for free, and it's a little bit different than what we do here on YouTube, and this is what we made this week. And it was the technique discovery this month was, again, about watercolor markers. I took a deeper dive in that class. So if you're at all interested in my free community, it's at craftyourjoylab.com. You can see that information listed down below in the description. You can join for free. Everything's for free right now. I'm hoping to expand over time. Some smaller classes will be paid classes down the road, but right now everything is free and you have free access to all of my neighborhoods there. There's a lot of information there. I would just love to have you there because I'm spending more time there sharing lots of content that I don't share anywhere else, including social media. And it's ad-free, clutter-free, and it's very, very intensely focused on watercolor. Kathleen said, I always forget to go to the community. Sydney said, oh, wow, is there a link? Yes, Sydney, the link is down below in the description, but go to craftyourjoylab.com and you will see the information and it will tell you all about the community. And if you're still interested, you just click join and I will let you in. Okay. All right, friends. Thank you so much for joining me today. I was so excited about this card. It kind of matches my outfit. It's a little bit blown out because of the lights. It kind of matches my outfit and I'm kind of digging that. But I am so excited that I could come to you today and teach this tutorial. Okay, friends, the links are down below in the description for all excuse me, the supplies I used today, except for the inks and paper, because I changed that at the last minute, and I'll go back in and change that. I will be going live next Thursday, but next Thursday is going to be different, friends. We're going to do a paint along. It might turn into a card, but the techniques will be intense. We're going to do, I'm feeling spring. And I know that we're in the fake spring moment right now where it's still winter and you get these really nice temperatures where it feels like spring's happening. Things start to pop up out of the ground, and then champagne, you get chamoised with another blow of winter. But I'm trying to be an optimist. So next week we're going to do a little paint along, and we're going to paint some violas and pansies. No, probably not pansies, but some violas. And we're going to do it with brush strokes only. Maybe. I don't know. We'll see. If you're on my email list, you'll be getting that information into your inbox, including any kind of line art illustration that I might have you download to paint along with me. And we may, since we're going to focus on using ink tints with our card projects next month, I may be bringing them in and introduce those next week as well, since we'll be in March. Thank you, Cheryl. Cheryl just shared it's a great community. I like getting the email notifications when Lisa adds something. So that's true. In my Craft Your Joy Lab community, when I add something to the community, whether I go live, whether I add a post, whether I add a project or a technique or whatever I'm adding in the neighborhoods in that community, you get a notification via email. So it's kind of like you don't have to, it's our own little community, and I'm notifying you of things. You can also set the notifications the way you want it. You can get it once a day. There's so much more opportunity in this space. And my big thing is that it's clutter-free and ad-free. So we're not scrolling through all of the things and seeing things that we don't want. This is the community that's focused on watercolor. Okay. All right, friends. Thanks so much for joining me today. I am so blessed that you could join me today. So excited that you could join me today. And I love the card that we created together. I love it. I love how everything came out. It's just been a great day so far. So I'm sending you into the weekend to craft your joy. If you've gotten this stamp set, I can't wait to see what you create. And again, I'll be back next week. And my newest release with Gina K will be coming out on the 11th. Holy smokes. We're already into March. Okay, friends. Have a great weekend. Have a great day. Thanks so much for joining me, and I'll see you next time. Bye now.